Hi, I'm Allison Powell. I've been an AP teacher for about 12 years now, teaching 5 different AP subjects, one of which was AP Psych. And tonight I really want to tell you all about emotions because I got a ton of them. So let's get to it. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram and subscribe on YouTube to get updated on everything fiveable. Tonight, we're going to be talking about theories of emotion and stress and coping. That stress and coping piece you might need to hear a little bit about. I know I do. Right there in front of you on the right is the breakdown of the unit for AP Psychology, Unit 7. We've already covered motivation. I did that last week. This week again is emotion, and the next 2 weeks will be personality. So this month that we're spending on Unit 7 is about 10 to 15% of the exam. Yeah. Okay. All right. So in the chat box, if you could, tell me how familiar you are with these terms. So say hi and tell me how familiar you are with these terms. One meaning, I've never seen these before. Allison, you are crazy to think that I should know any of this. We haven't even covered it in our class yet. And 5 being, I got this already. I could be teaching this class. So tell me what you think. How are you doing? Cool. All right, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to play a video because we're talking about emotion tonight, right? And so I wanted to start the lesson with thinking about an emotional experience. And I just so happen to have a music video from one of my friends, actually. He plays in a band called How I Became the Bomb. And I just think that this is a really great display of emotion here. And it might make you a little bit emotional too. I know the first time I saw it, I think I cried. So buckle up, Buttercup. Okay, here it goes. So feel free to chat, especially now in the chat box, since we're not really going over anything. There she was, like a picture. There she was just the same. There she was, he just had to know that she had forgotten his name. Thinking back to the last time on the wall as they turned away. Walking back, was it just a dream, or did he hear her say, trying his best to forget her, trying his best to just keep it straight. Kept his word, but he knows he hurt. There she was, like a picture. There she was just the same. There she was, he just had to know she had not forgotten his name. Okay, so in the chat box, feel free to comment on the music video if you want while I get the slides back up. The reason why I use that is because we're going to be talking about how we process emotions. And I felt like in that video, you could really see the emotion expressed there. And that's what we're going to be talking about. All right. Okay. You may be looking at me like this little girl here. I know whenever I looked at that list of terms, that's how I looked, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, we've got to memorize all those things. Okay. So before studying this unit in AP Psychology, you probably didn't think about the process of experiencing emotion. You probably just thought, hey, something happens and you have a reaction, like your favorite show gets canceled, like BoJack Horseman, and you get really angry. And so that emotion emerges. Okay, but there's actually a process by which emotions emerge. And there's three components. There's the physical arousal, so your body kind of kicking in, you're getting tense or feeling relieved, various things that you feel in your body. Then behaviors or actions that you take because you feel that, like maybe your facial expressions change, you actually tense your body or release your body. That's a behavior, okay? But also you have cognitions or thoughts about what's going on. And then all of that together creates the emotion. But see, all these different theorists, they all have their own spin on how this happens in your body, okay? And in your mind. And so that can be kind of a daunting list. So let's go through it. Okay. So this is kind of like a chicken and an egg debate. Like, what comes first? Of those three things that I just talked about is a component of emotion. What comes first? And if you're like me, you probably thought, well, duh, the emotion comes first. Okay, and then you get the physical symptoms. So like you feel afraid and then your hands start sweating. But James-Lange, and that's two different people, William James and Mr. Lange, said that it actually happens in reverse, that you feel your hands getting sweaty and your heart racing and your breathing start to labor to be faster. And then you feel the emotion of fear or happiness or any of those wonderful emotions. And that kind of seems counterintuitive to me, but there's actually some evidence for it. Have any of you guys ever been in a car wreck? Because I have. And in a car wreck, one time I spun around on the interstate and my back end hit a rail. And while the car is spinning, everything was like in complete slow motion. But I did not feel fear at that point. It's when we stopped, my heart was pounding, and then I felt afraid. Okay, and so that kind of supports James-Lange, right? So there is some validity to this. However, let's think of all the emotions we have. So some of the big emotions are joy and fear. Well, those both are kind of similar in the physical responses that they make, okay? And in the caption on the slide, it says, if you go for a run, you're going to have an elevated heart rate, okay? Just like you would if you felt fear. But whenever you go on a run and you have the elevated heart rate, the fear does not come after it, okay? So it has to be something besides just this physical response, even though that does affect how you process emotions. We know that it does. For example, people who have lost feeling, like let's say they're in a car accident and they're paralyzed from the neck or from the, let's say from the chest down. We know that they are not able to feel emotions as much. They report not feeling as angry, not feeling as joyful, because they don't have that response from their body, okay? But that doesn't mean they don't feel any emotions at all, okay? So the fact that physical responses to fear and happiness and heck, just working out are very similar, this can't be really a complete theory because of that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to distinguish emotions since they have the same physical response. Okay. So Cannon-Bard says, nope, don't believe Mr. James and Mr. Lange. We believe that the emotion and the physical response occur at the same time. So they think, well, the brain is really smart. We can pat our head and rub our tummies at the same time, like Miss Polar here. We can do that. So the brain can do two things at once. It can send signals to bring about thoughts and therefore emotions, as well as send signals to the sympathetic nervous system to kind of power up, okay, to physically react. So again, Cannon-Bard says that the emotion and the physical response occur at the same time. In physical response, I mean the bodily response, okay? Yet another theory is Schachter-Singer's two-factor theory, okay? And this kind of seems similar to the last one, Cannon-Bard, except for one other thing. He says that the two factors then produce the emotion. So the two factors are the physical response, your heart beating, like here with the Gippies, I've got Mr. Burns' heart. Small as it is really pounding because he has just discovered some evil plot that will make him a ton of money, okay? And so he, along with the physical response, thinks to himself, oh, I'm excited about this, ha 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 ha. And then he realizes he's having the emotion of happiness, okay? So it's two factors, the cognition or cognitive label of thinking what's going on, and plus the physical response then brings about the happiness, okay? Wanted to tell you real quick about a study that he did because it could come up on the exam. And this study is really to show that both physical arousal and thoughts provoke emotions. So what they did was they injected some people with epinephrine. They placed them in one of two groups. The first group, they told the participants that they injected with the epinephrine what the effects would be, that their heart rate would speed, they might break out into a cold sweat, their breathing could be quicker, okay? But the second group, they did not tell the effects. And then they placed both groups of participants in rooms with either angry people or people who were happy and excited. So the people that he told the effects about the drug to, saying, hey, you're going to be feeling a little excited. Your body is going to be feeling a little excited. Those people did not then report any sort of different feelings or different emotions. They didn't say that they were happy or sad. Again, they put them in a room with either people who were really happy and joyful or people who were really angry. But those people that they did not tell what the effects of the epinephrine were, they then reported, if they were with the happy people, that they were happy. Okay, and the people who they were angry with, they said, I'm pretty irritable now. Okay, so this shows us that the people who got the information about what's happening to their body, well, they had a different cognitive label. They thought, oh, when they felt the heart rate pumping or the heart pumping, they thought, oh, this is due to the drug, not to any emotion that I'm experiencing. But the other people who did not have that cognitive label formulated a different cognitive label. So the cognitive label or the thoughts really do impact how we experience emotion. Okay, so this is just a graphic that I got from an open source textbook that kind of compares the three theories. So these are the theories of all of that huge long list. These are the ones that are likely to come up on your exam. So remember, James-Lange, the first one, said that we have the physical response in our bodies, okay, from the sympathetic nervous system, and then we feel the emotion. Cannon-Bard says we can do two things at once, okay? We feel the emotion and we have the physical symptoms from the sympathetic nervous system, okay? And Schachter-Singer, with the two-factor theory, says that it takes two things to produce an emotion. One, a cognitive label, and two, the physical arousal symptoms. And that's what produces the emotion. Okay. Next, I want to talk about something that's related. It wasn't on the list of examples, but I have seen a question about it, and it's something called spillover effects. So that physical arousal that you feel can have spillover effects from one emotion to another. So let's say something's got you keyed up and you're really, because you're happy, okay? You're happy about some emotion, or you're happy about some event, okay? And then something comes in and makes you angry. Well, you're more likely to then get angry from that other stimulus because you're already kind of revved up from being happy. So you already have the physical arousal part. So last week when I was teaching on Fiveable, I get a little excited when I teach. You can't tell. And so right after I was in kind of an alert state, my sympathetic nervous system kicked in from teaching, I then watched Curb Your Enthusiasm. And let me tell you, that was the funniest episode that I've ever seen of Curb. I just laughed my booty off. And that's because I was already keyed up from teaching. So definitely emotions can spill over from one thing to another. This is kind of like why some people like to purposely get in fights with their partner. Have you ever heard of like kissing and making up? Yeah. So the anger can translate into passion more vigorously. Yeah. All right. Spillover effects. Okay. So we've talked about James-Lange. We talked about Cannon-Bard. We talked about Schachter-Singer. I'd skipped evolution for just a minute. I will go back to it. But now I want to talk about Lazarus appraisal theory. Okay. He says, and this kind of makes sense, that you have an event, a stimulus, let's say a new job, and then you have to appraise it. You have to think about whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. Sometimes there's going to be good things and bad things about it, but overall, if it's good or bad, and then that will allow you to be happy or sad. So then you'll feel the emotion after you appraise the situation. But no, unlike with like a job where you actually have to think about whether or not, the cost out or the benefits outweigh the cost, or think about all the good things and bad things with it. Sometimes your appraisal can be immediate and even unconscious. But after that appraisal happens, then you have your emotion of being happy or sad. This kind of, to me, is similar to that two-factor theory. Instead of just saying it's a cognitive label, though, we're saying it's an appraisal and an evaluation. So after you have this emotion, then you can think about whether or not what your action is going to be. So are you going to approach it or withdraw? Are you going to fight or flee or freeze? Okay. I think this appraisal theory is a pretty good one, because think about it. Let's say you're walking down a street at night. Okay, this looks like a very pretty street to walk down, but it's kind of dark and a little scary. So before you feel afraid or not, you kind of have to appraise the situation. Like, are there other people around? How threatening has this street been in the past? Like, if you know of crimes that have happened there in the past. So this also kind of shows that you have to have some sort of thoughts or feelings before you have the emotion. Because if you had no preconceived notions about darkness or strangers or crime, then this would never be a fearful situation. But because we do have those thoughts and knowledge, it can become fearful to us. Okay. So LeDoux's theory is that you have two roads, the low road and the high road. You know, Michelle Obama talked about, when they go the low road, we go the high road. Well, this is a little different, but kind of the same, in that the high road here is when we actually think about the emotions. So, or before we have the emotion, we actually, signals go from the thalamus to the thinking part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's the high road. So we see a stimulus, it gets translated in the thalamus to our prefrontal cortex, and we think about assessing the situation, okay? But he says there's a low road too that does not involve thinking, and that's a path that goes straight from the thalamus to the amygdala. And there's been a lot of research since LeDoux about the amygdala. I've even read a book about psychopaths and about how people who are psychopaths have a different size amygdala than people without that disorder, because they feel fear differently and they don't feel fear as much. It's kind of an interesting read. Anyway, that low road allows us to react more quickly to threats. You know, we don't have to think, oh, is this person going to hurt me? You know, we see the threat and we react. Okay, so LeDoux, think high road and low road, like this picture, or like Michelle Obama telling people the way to be. The way to be, to think. Sometimes you need to react, right, and go the low road. All right. So another thing that will definitely be on the exam, well, not definitely, but comes up quite frequently, is Paul Ekman and his studies of facial expressions. On the right there, if you see the right-hand box with the 6 faces, those show different emotions. And you can show those pictures, just like Paul Ekman did, to people of all different cultures, and they can tell what the person is feeling, you know? So the first one, obviously, on the top of those pictures, the top left, you know, is happiness, surprise, fear, disgust, anger, okay? So he showed these to people of different cultures, and everybody knew these expressions. And he showed people from the United States pictures of people from other cultures, these different emotions, and we can pick them out, okay? So that shows us that we all have kind of the same facial expressions for the same basic emotions. What's also interesting is that across cultures, people tend to show more expression to people in their own group versus outsiders. That's common sense, right? You're going to be more emotional around people you know than people that you don't know. Also, we do recognize emotions slightly better from faces of our own culture. Okay, so like I would recognize emotions in someone who's Caucasian better than I would someone of different background. Okay, but that doesn't mean that I cannot recognize emotions in other people's cultures. Okay. The reason why I have a photo of friends there is because Malcolm Gladwell wrote a new book called Talking with Strangers. And if you don't know who Malcolm Gladwell is, well, then just, I don't know, research him, find some videos on YouTube. He's great. Also, he's been on Oprah's Super Soul Conversation. That's how I heard about this book and then downloaded it immediately. So anyway, in Talking with Strangers, he's talking about how we appraise others and their body language to give us feedback on how we should react to these other people, okay? And he said that the best TV show out there to show someone emotional expressions is definitely Friends. And that you could take Friends, an episode of Friends, to anywhere in the world, all right, and they don't have to speak the same language, and they can definitely tell, you know, that Ross and Rachel love each other, and that Chandler and Monica are gonna get together. Like, they can see what's going on with the plot because their facial expressions are just so dramatic, and also because facial expressions are cross-cultural. So they just know how to emote, which is why they got paid $1 million an episode, each actor. And that was a long time ago too, so wow. Okay, so now back to a previous theory called evolutionary theories. So the reason why I wanted to put this here is because our facial expressions seem to be innate. You know, we're born with these facial expressions. It shows us that we must have developed, or we can think that we must have developed these facial expressions to communicate with one another before we had language, and that it had some evolutionary value. Like, people who could communicate with their faces tended to survive, tended to make babies who then emoted with their faces as well, okay? And something funny that I hadn't really thought about when I was researching this is that animals sometimes have the same facial expressions we do, like they can sneer. And we kind of have that same sneer. So that again shows us that that facial expressions not only are cross-cultural, but can be, you know, within like mammals. All right, so it must have been something that helps them and us communicate. All right, so there you see a really silly picture, or two pictures of my husband. Okay, so the facial feedback hypothesis. So it says that the way our faces like are not really shaped, but are the contortions. Excuse me, let me back up. The way when we smile, we activate certain muscles. When those muscles are activated, like I'm giving a fake smile, I can actually produce the emotion of happiness from that fake smile, at least a little bit, okay? So how they experimented with this is they were putting electrodes on like participants, okay? And they said, okay, I need you to raise your eyebrows. And so basically they try to contort the face into being angry, or draw your eyebrows together and put the electrodes right here. So that way the participant like looked angry, and then later the participants said that they were angry. And it's not like they were conscious of it. They didn't say, okay, we're going to try to make you make an angry face and see if you're going to be angry. They did this ruse of putting electrodes on their faces and contorted their face to express those emotions, and then they felt it. Same deal with being happy. So anyway, that kind of shows you that the way in which we activate muscles in our face can then make us feel an emotion. So that kind of gets back to James-Lange, right? That you have like some bodily response and then you feel the emotion. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Another study they did is they had participants hold a pencil in their mouth, okay, with their teeth. And that kind of stimulated the smiling muscles. And then they had them read a comic. And the people who put the pen in their mouth, stimulating the smiling muscles, reported that the comic was funnier. But people who put it between their lips, were supposed to hold the pencil between their lips while they read it, did not think that the comic was as funny. Okay, so my husband sent this to me because I texted him, hey, I should get Botox because Botox has worked and made people happier. This is crazy. If it's injected like where your frown lines are, because then you won't be able to frown as easily, and then you like aren't sad. So Botox for everyone helps you not just with your wrinkles, but also, you know, with increasing your happiness. Anyway, I told him that, and that's what he texted back. He's such a dork. Okay. All right, so we've gone through all of the theories, right? Let's go back and see that list again. All right, so we've done James-Lange, Cannon-Bard, Schachter-Singer's two-factor theory, evolutionary theory, Lazarus theory, appraisal theory, LeDoux saying the high road and the low road. We got Paul Ekman saying that it doesn't matter what culture you're in, your facial expressions are the same. And then we got the facial feedback hypothesis that says if you smile, then you're going to be happy because you're activating the smile muscles. Okay. So now I want to talk about some differences in cultural influences with emotional expression. Okay, so when you go to other countries, please don't use this okay symbol like Nixon did. First of all, this okay symbol is like a Nazi symbol now. I don't know how that happened, but in other cultures, I do see how this happened. This is kind of a, well, it's vulgar. That's how it's vulgar. So Nixon went to another country, he did this little symbol, and they thought that he was trying to say something to them. Anyway, so don't do that. My sister-in-law, every time I see her, she's Puerto Rican, she greets me on the cheek, you know, with kisses. Yeah. Okay. It's kind of different, but I'm accepting of it. Anyway, Different cultures have, especially like individualistic cultures, tend to express more emotion, whereas collectivist cultures express less like individual emotion, so less emotion about themselves. When you think, what do you do? Generally, when you're thinking about something, you look up, right? Well, in other cultures, particularly the Japanese, they look down, mostly because that is a sign of respect. And one of the clip art pieces I have here is of Japanese men exchanging business cards, because there's like a whole ritual around that too, which I find fascinating. Okay, so what we just talked about was how different cultures have the same facial expressions but different gestures and body language, and just the level of intensity in emoting is different around the world. Okay, so we've done all the emotional stuff. Now we're going to talk about stress. So we use the word stress interchangeably a lot. We have stressor, stress reaction, and stress. And we use all of that to mean stress, but really the stressor is the event taking place. Okay, and the stress reaction, your heart rate's pounding. Okay, that's the stress reaction. And then the process of relating, like what you think about it, what you're going to do about it, that is stress. So stress is more of a process than just like, oh, this paper's stressing me out. Okay, that's actually the stressor and not the stress. Stress is how you deal with it, deal with the paper. Okay, so when presented with a stressor, our body, according to Selye, goes through 3 stages. First is the alarm reaction. And that is when the body's sympathetic nervous system kind of kicks into gear. This is where our body starts its ability, gets revved up to either flee or fight, right? You've heard of that. But what's interesting is now we know that some people don't just flee or fight, some people freeze, and that would totally be me. Trust me on this one. I've had several like emergencies in my class. Oh, and I was just not good. I'm the one who freezes. Another way you can react to things is by cuddling, actually. So some people go and seek out others to be with instead of fleeing the scene or freezing up or fighting it. They go seek assistance. So I call that the cuddle reaction. Anyway. So this alarm stage, it's not a bad thing that your body does this, that the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. The reason why is because when this happens, you have a greater ability to solve problems. Your brain can think more. Your body releases more sugar, more blood sugar, so that way, that sends it all over your body, so your muscles can run further. You can run further because your muscles are activated. Your brain can think more. Your body actually heals wounds better when the sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. It allows you, so it allows you to fight or to flee. The second stage is the resistance stage, and this allows you to cope with the stressor, okay? The third stage is exhaustion, and this is when you're particularly vulnerable to illness. This is also when the parasympathetic part of the nervous system tries to calm you down. Okay, so a little bit of stress is not a bad thing. And in fact, a little bit of stress can help you on a test, for example. But if you get too keyed up, that's when it becomes a problem. And whenever you have too many stressful events in a row, that's also when it can become a problem. So the other part of the standard is stress-related illnesses. So the big ones that I see a lot on the test is that your immunity is down. Because your immunity has been kicked into overdrive too many times, it basically is just completely weakened, or your body is weakened from fighting the stress so much, okay? Since your immune system is weak, this can lead to things that your body could normally fight, not being able to fight. And it can lead to hives. So I got a picture of Woogie there from There's Something About Mary with all his shoes, or her shoes that he's stolen. He's broken out in hives. I'm laughing about it with Woogie, but I break out into hives if I get really, really stressed. Other people can have asthma attacks. So the hives and the asthma attacks are related to the immune system as well, okay? Because usually the body can fight those things if it hasn't been through extreme stress. Okay, they can also lead to chronic disease too, in your digestion systems, circulatory systems. What's interesting is they conducted an experiment on tax accountants. And so as the April 15th tax deadline approached, you could see cholesterol levels rising. And also they could look at how well your blood clots. And the clotting measure rose to near dangerous levels around April 15th. And then as soon as April 15th was over, it was back to normal, okay? So we definitely can see how this can cause heart attacks. And what's interesting is that type A personalities, kind of like myself, people who are a bit competitive and aggressive, and time conscious, gotta go, 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 go. Those kind of people, yeah, they have more heart attacks. In fact, 69% more heart attacks than all different types of personalities. A pure type B person, so somebody who's super laid back and easygoing, in this study, they had no heart attacks out of like around 300 people. So I guess it pays to be easier going. Yeah, that's not really me. Okay. So Lewin has this idea about how you deal with conflict and these stressors. Okay, and he talks about how you deal with it when you're choosing between two good things. So he called that the approach conflict, when you have two good things that you have to decide between, all right? Because you want to approach them both. Avoidance is like you would rather stay away from both of them, but you have to do it, okay? And so it's still two choices, one good, one bad. Or excuse me, both bad for avoidance, both bad, okay? The approach avoidance is when there's one thing that you're trying to decide to do or not do. And it has some good things that make you want to approach it, and some bad things that make you want to stay away from it big time, okay? So political candidates, I think, are a really good example of this. So you can tell me in the chat box what your thoughts are, but some people would say that these two candidates, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, are approach. They like them both. They just have to decide between the two things that they like, or two people that they like. Some people would think for them this is avoidance. They don't like either of them. But let's say that they were this is the general election instead of the primary, and they only had those two choices. If you're in AP Gov, that's called a clothespin vote. You got to hold your nose with a clothespin because you don't like either candidate. Or, you have to decide whether to vote, and you kind of like some things about one person, and you kind of don't like some things about one person. Okay, that would be approach or avoidance. It would have to be one person, and you're thinking about the good things and the bad things about them. Okay? So what to do with stress? We all have it, or at least I have it quite a bit. How should we relieve that? What are the healthy and unhealthy ways? Well, one healthy way to relieve stress is the problem-focused method. So, as you can imagine, this is where you think about the problem, the thing that's stressing you out, and you make a plan. So, is it exams? Is the AP exam that's stressing you out? Well, come to Fiveable, that problem solved. Okay, so you make a study plan. Okay, and that can relieve your stress. Yep. Okay, so that can be a problem-focused solution. Emotion-focused is, instead of dealing with the problem, you're going to relieve the symptoms of the stress. Okay, so some of those can be kind of good and healthy, like leaning on friends for emotional support during a stressful time. Your social circle has really been shown to be able to alleviate some symptoms of stress. Okay, but the number one thing that can relieve stress is exercise. So that can be another emotion-focused strategy that helps. Okay, but there's some maladaptive ones. Somebody in the chat box likes using Netflix to deal with stress. I feel your pain. I have stress, and I like to binge watch too. Okay, so, but that's kind of unhealthy, right? Because we're avoiding the problem, not really solving it. Instead, we're relieving the stress. I think it's okay, just as long as you don't, spend 10 hours watching, I don't know, The Outsider. Okay, obviously, stress eating can be a thing, certainly a thing with me. I like to eat junk food when I'm stressed out. Not a good emotion-focused strategy, though. Alcohol and cigarettes and other drugs can also be an unhealthy response to stress. Okay. Well, hope that hasn't stressed you out too much, and hopefully it's relieved some stress. We've talked about all kinds of different theories, and we've also talked about cross-cultural reactions to emotions, and we've talked about how to deal with stress and how stress happens in your body. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat box. Thanks for listening. I really do appreciate it, and I really hope to see you back next week when we talk about Freud. Oh, one more thing, again, at Think Fiveable, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube, and my Twitter account that I just started is at AllieP for AP. Thanks again so much, and I hope to see you back next week. Let me know if you have any questions in the chat box. I'll be around for a few.